Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. This is Exposure Therapy Streams. My name is Scott, and today we're going to be playing Firewatch. Firewatch is a game in the walking simulator genre of games, and this is going to be a completely blind playthrough. I've never played this game before. I know very little about it. I know that you play a park ranger in what I assume is a national park, but I don't know, I could be wrong. And it's actually surprising how I've gone this long without knowing anything about this game because the walking simulator genre is one of my favorite genres of games. And if you don't know what a walking simulator is, it actually started as a derogatory term for a recent genre of games where the focus isn't on action, it's not focused on shooting, it's not focused on game mechanics, or usually not even puzzle solving. The main focus of the game is just to experience an interactive narrative story. And it's really quite different from anything else that's come before in video games. My first experience of the walking simulator genre was actually way back at the start of the genre with the first game to be developed in this style, Dear Esther. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with Dear Esther, the basic premise of the game is you're on an island in the Hebrides, which is somewhere in the United Kingdom off the coast, and you're just exploring this desolate, deserted island while a narrative story is told via voiceover. The developer of this game was the Chinese Room, and they intentionally made the game that was devoid of any action or mechanics or anything, and they just wanted this to be a purely narrative experience where the player just walks around, hence the name Walking Simulator, and explores and gets bits and pieces of a narrative story as they explore. I believe the game came out in 2012, and I think somehow I managed to stumble upon it maybe a month after it came out. And I played through the game. Only took maybe 2 hours. It's not a long game at all. Most of them aren't. Because, again, the focus is more on narrative, and it's easy to tell a concise narrative story when you don't have to worry about gameplay or upgrades or any of the things that normally come associated with video games. And for me, the experience was vastly different than anything else I had played before, and I found that intriguing. It was 2012, and it was a indie PC game, so the graphics weren't amazing, but the game was beautiful in its own way. The story it told was very arcane and confusing, flashing between the story of a man who had lost his wife in a car accident, tied in with bits and pieces of a hermit shepherd who lived on this island, and maybe a couple other random storylines that are completely dissonant from each other. And to make matters even more confusing, the snippets of narrative audio you would get would change on every playthrough. So there wasn't even really a cohesive story. But with that game, the Chinese Rooms planted this seed in the minds of a bunch of future developers to inspire them to make similar games where the focus was off the action and on the narrative. I've played a few other walking simulators over time. Some standouts include, I think the next one I played was Gone Home by, I think the developer on that is Fulbright, if I'm not mistaken. And Gone Home placed a little more focus on an actual cohesive story. It tells the story of a girl arriving home from college to the new house her family has moved into while she was away, and she's never been in it before. But when she gets dropped off by a taxi, there's none of her family is home. So she's just left to explore the house, figure out what her new living arrangement's going to be like, and also piece together what the family's been up to in her absence, with specific focus on her younger sister. When the game starts out, it kind of almost fools you into thinking it's a horror game and plays with a lot of horror tropes and mechanisms, which all turn out to have perfectly mundane, normal explanations. It just seems creepy, but it's really not. And the story is actually, it's a very touching, heartwarming story about her sister's coming of age and grappling with her sexuality. And it's just a really beautiful game and further cemented my interest in this genre. I've tried to get into a couple other ones by the Chinese Room, the company that made Dear Esther, the original one. They worked on the Amnesia sequel, A Machine for Pigs. And that game is definitely more straight up horror with actual gameplay elements like the original Amnesia, but still some of the walking simulator elements like Dear Esther. It started out pretty strong. I thought the ending was kind of weak. Overall, wasn't terribly good in my opinion. I tried watching one of their follow-ups, which was Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. I couldn't get into it. I wasn't terribly fond of it. And there's been others that I've dabbled with over time, struggling to think of some of them now. Until recently, what is widely considered the crown jewel of the walking simulator genre, What Remains of Edith Finch. I played maybe last year or the year before, and it absolutely blew me away. If you've never played What Remains of Edith Finch, I strongly suggest you play it. It's free on Xbox Game Pass if you have that. You could also watch any number of playthroughs on YouTube if you also want to indulge in the commentary of other streamers or YouTubers. And it's just a very, very touching but very deeply sad and grief-filled story about death. And I don't want to get into it too much because I don't want to spoil it. It's really an experience you should have for yourself. So I highly recommend playing through if you have any interest in this genre of games. If you haven't already, chances are you have. At some point, I want to record a critic commentary and analysis of What Remains of Edith Finch. And I will do that at some point. But not today. Today we're going to be playing Firewatch. So I've babbled on enough. Let's get into it. So going into this, I'm not entirely sure what I should be expecting. I assume it's going to get emotional, because most walking simulators usually do. And I'm definitely susceptible to that. Looks like we're going to be in Boulder, Colorado, 1975. You see Julia. She's about your age, late 20s, laughing with well-dressed professors and grad students from nearby CU Boulder. You, Henry, are out drinking with your pals. You approach her. No, I gotta click A. You are drunk. Let's see, should I go subtle or direct? I am drunk. Let's go direct. You're pretty. You're pretty, she says coolly. You are not. You are a future hangover. Sounds like it. What? You reply, confused. Someone should buy you a cheeseburger, she says. She flags down a waiter, and 1 week later, you are Julia's boyfriend. Well, that was quick. Okay, I'm in an elevator. I have a backpack. And I guess I have a pickup truck. Just toss the backpack in with the bed down. That's smart. I'm sure that won't roll away. You date for over a year. She drives you absolutely nuts. It's great. I know the feeling. You move in. You share an apartment near the school with a view of the mountains. You two drink beers out on the deck. You drink beer just about anywhere. Life is good. God, I would love to have a house with a view of the mountains. My house right now has a nice river view. And I wouldn't quite call them mountains. It's more hills out where I live. It's nice. But you just really can't beat the mountains out in Colorado. Or anywhere in the Rockies for that matter. Julia wants to get a dog. Smart girl. There's a scruffy, undersized beagle. Julia is in love. She wants to bring it with her to class. There's also an intimidating but gentle-eyed German shepherd. Nothing bad could happen to Julia while walking this dog. It's badass. So, personally, I have two dogs. One is a West Highland Terrier, a Westie. His name is Watson. And I have a Schnauzer, or miniature Schnauzer, even. His name is Sherlock. So, Watson the Westie, Sherlock the Schnauzer. I do love big dogs. I've got nothing against them. I just have a smaller townhouse I live in, so I don't have enough room or yard for a big dog. So I'm going to go with Beagle and have her name him Bucket. Bucket's a good dog, and a week later you've totally forgotten about the other one. Julia loves him. You love him too. "1979. You talk out on the deck. It's summer, 9:30 p.m. and the heat still radiates off of the high desert. What do you think about kids, she asks. Kids? They're not very smart or good at much. True. I'm saying if you and I have a couple little idiots. That would be pretty good. One day, why rush? What is this? So, I think it said 79. It's been 4 years since we met. We're in our mid-20s. Okay to have kids at this point. But, you know, one day, why rush? Still got plenty of time. She looks away, out towards the mountains. We have plenty of time, right? Speak for yourself, mister. Don't worry, you assure her. I do not like the sound of that. You tell her she has the body of an undergrad. My ovaries didn't get the memo, she says, laughing it off. One day, okay? Okay, one day, she says. Oh, you're not even engaged yet. She was talking about kids. Oh, it's an important thing to talk about, you know, before you get engaged, but I don't think it's something we're going to rush into based on that conversation. 6 months later, you get engaged lying in bed on a Sunday morning. That's cute. Okay. Arrived at our destination. Appeared to be, what I'm going to assume is the park, or will be a future park ranger. Heading on the thoroughfare trailhead of Two Forks. Text is a little too blurry for me to read some of those destinations on the map. Not for inexperienced hikers. And there's bears here. Awesome. We rub bear spray. Which, contrary to some people's opinion, is not like bug spray. You do not use it on yourself. "1980. It's a Thursday night and Julia is 4 hours late. She doesn't call. You're worried and getting angrier by the minute. She walks in after you've gone to bed. She's not quite drunk, but clearly she's been having a fun time. You fight when she gets between the sheets. You get mad or you ignore her. Where's the option where you talk and have an open and honest conversation? It's the best way to do it, but God, neither of these are good choices. I guess we'll ignore her. You don't touch each other all night. The next day you feel guilty for being so angry and ask her about her evening. She says it was great. You hold on to a tiny pill of resentment. So were we just fighting just because she went out and had a good time? We don't even know what happened. That doesn't seem very healthy. You make some coffee and go to work. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've definitely been there before, but, you know, especially earlier on in my relationship. Julia still likes to draw. She draws plants from her research. She draws all the places you go. She draws you. You pose and flex like He-Man. You frolic like a Victoria's Secret model. If this were me, toxic masculinity aside, I'd probably pose and flex, but for the sake of this, I think it'd be funnier to see what I'm going to assume is a typical park ranger looking guy frolic around like a Victoria's Secret model. Julia was right, you are very pretty. Nice callback. Okay, back in the park. Sun is starting to set. And it's going to set very soon with those mountains looming large over there. You know, the visuals in this game are kind of low poly. But I'm sure that was a stylistic choice because it is very pretty. That sunset is gorgeous. And the shading on the skybox is nicely done. This kind of reminds me in style like The Witness a little bit. At least the way the trees and grass are modeled and the shading is done. Let's see, we're going to Two Forks Fire Lockout. 8 more miles. Whew. I don't think we're going to make it before the sun sets if we got 8 miles to go. At a good walking clip, that's going to take like 2.5 hours. Okay, back to the story. 1982. During the summers, you and Julia enjoy walking Bucket at night. There's a festival in town. It brings in folks from faraway places. One of them tries to mug you with a knife. That was a bad idea. Bucket gets kicked. Kicked my dog? Fuck! Dog! Julia yells. She gets flustered and has trouble speaking when she is stressed. You confront the attacker. Scare him away or beat his goddamn face in. If someone kicked my dog and threatened me with a knife, I'm gonna beat his goddamn face in. Your arm gets cut up, but you beat the guy to a pulp. You don't feel very tough. You cry your eyes out before the cops show up. Julia asks to take a different path from that day forward. You say okay. You don't want to go that way either. From then on, you walk by the river. Yeah, trauma will do that to you. I mean, you know, you don't want to let it run your life, but if you need to use avoidance as a coping mechanism, I don't think anyone's going to fault you for that. (1984). Plans to have kids get waylaid by work. Ain't that the truth? Julia gets offered a job at Yale. Yale is in Connecticut, 2,000 miles away. It's a great job, associate department chair. She wants to move. You absolutely do not. Convince her not to take the job. Agree if she commutes back and forth. Ooh. Again, not great options. I mean, if you're going to be married, you should... No judgment on anyone that has a situation like this, but I think obviously it would be better if you stayed together. And I don't know, I mean, I would much rather live in Colorado than Connecticut. But I don't know that I'd want to be that selfish to spend most of my marriage apart just so I could stay in a place I like. Convince her not to take the job. I guess I'm going to convince her, just so we can stay together. Again, very selfish, either choice, but I've only got 2. You tell her that this means you two won't have a family. She says that's bullshit. She's totally right. She asks if her taking the job means you won't come with her. You say yes. Again, bullshit. But she decides not to take it. A bit manipulative. Julia is asked to leave Boulder on paid leave after having an episode. She lost it on a colleague for borrowing books that were important to her research. She didn't remember she had happily loaned them to him just 2 days prior. She was found crying in the stairwell. You say that maybe you guys should talk to someone about it. You make macaroni and drink wine and try to forget about it. As good as macaroni and wine sounds, forgetting about it, well, I mean, it sounds like she's starting to have memory problems. Forgetting about this is the last thing you want to do. Definitely, we should talk to someone about it. After seeing multiple doctors and having many tests, they are worried that Julia might be suffering from early onset dementia. She is 41. Thanks. You both decide to keep it a secret for now. That's rough. I feel absolutely terrible for anyone that's personally dealing with dementia or has a loved one dealing with it. It's actually a very big fear of mine. I'm terrified that I'm going to get dementia earlier in life. I've had way too many concussions in my life. I stopped keeping track at 20, so this is actually a big fear of mine. So a little bit of a trigger. Okay, back to the campsite. Yeah, this makes sense. We weren't, no way we're making 8 miles before the sunset. Better to make camp and continue in the morning. Okay, let's check our journal, I guess. And I was rewarded for picking prancing like a Victoria's Secret model. Awesome. Begs the question, what are we doing out here alone? Bucket is getting older. Julia comments that it's kind of nice because he gets in less trouble around the house. A week later, she goes back to the university. My Westie Watson, he's 7 now, and he's definitely more mellow out, chill than he was when he was a younger dog. Sherlock, on the other hand, is barely over 1 year old, and he is a little rambunctious pup that annoys the crap out of my Westie. So yeah, dogs will do that. 1987. Julia's affliction gets worse. She can't remember things in class. Her research is in shambles. She drives her car to the next town over for no particular reason and has to be brought home by the police. She is devastated. She is sent home on permanent medical leave. Some days you get the Julia who calls you a dope and your unborn children little idiots. Other days you get a stranger. She pulls you into bed to make love. After 5 minutes, she goes into a panic, believing her dad is at the door. You tell her family. They are crushed and begin to make trips to and from their home in Australia to visit her. Oh, okay, her family's from Australia. Got it. For a while, your friends come by with little things to brighten the day. She gets worse. You spend your days following Julia around the house. You count the seconds between the 2 weekly visits from Danielle, the nurse. He suggests that Julia could live somewhere else, somewhere with 24-hour care, a home. It sits with you for a couple months. Whew. Alright, I'm trying really hard to separate myself from this right now, but this is the kind of shit that keeps me up at night, you know? So if this were me personally, my wife and I have gone through this with loved ones and how difficult it is when they're declining in health, trying to take care of them in your own house, and how much of a burden it can be on your loved ones. If it were me personally, I hate to burden other people. I hate to feel like an imposition. It's one of the places my social anxiety stems from in the first place. So if the decision were up to me, I'd probably want to be moved to a care facility, just so, you know, I wouldn't be a burden on anyone. But if the shoe were on the other foot, and I'm only in my 40s, no kids, I would definitely want to take care of my wife by myself. And just be with her as much as I can and be there for her. Oh god, this game's getting me already. Not even half an hour in. I'm already fighting back tears. Alright. Morning broke. Fog's rolling in gently. God rays shining through the trees. This is peaceful. And an elk. There's no way to get this close to an elk. It would have smelled me. And there it goes. It is impossibly hard. The worst is when you get mad at her, like when she tries to cook her own food. You can't do anything without her, and she can't do anything without you. When she goes to sleep, you stay up for a few hours, drinking on the deck, watching baseball in the summer, college basketball in the winter, drinking then too. Yeah, it can be very easy to fall into substance abuse as a way to deal with your difficulties in life. You start going out after you put her to bed. The first time you do it, you worry about her getting up and walking around while you're gone. Ugh. This is a tough choice. So you don't want her getting out and potentially hurting yourself. But at the same time, you know, if you lock her in the bedroom and she wakes up, that would be really scary. I'm probably going to opt... God, this decision sucks. I mean, if she gets out, she could potentially hurt herself in a way that would be lasting damage. And as terrible as this sounds, if she does get freaked out, she probably won't remember it. That sounds awful, but, you know, it's kind of like getting put under for surgery under twilight anesthetic. Like when I had my wisdom teeth out, you know, I was awake and conscious the whole time, but my memories weren't forming. So when I came to sitting on a couch, you know, a couple hours later, it's like it never even happened, even though I was awake and conscious and probably anxious and in pain. I didn't remember it. So when you look at it from that point of view, I think locking her in is the option for the least amount of harm. You go to the same bar at the boring end of Pearl Street. It's nice there. Over time, you tell Sheila, the bartender, everything. It's a huge weight off. You're home and in bed by 1 a.m. a couple nights a week. Good bartender will do that. Almost acts like a therapist, but problem is it comes with a potentially crippling alcohol addiction. So if you want to talk to someone, you're better off talking to a therapist. You look forward to those nights. Understandable. Someone in that situation definitely would. 1989. One night you are stopped at a DUI checkpoint. You blow a .1 and are taken to jail for the night. You consider trying to hide it, but you tell your sister-in-law, Susan. It's rough. Julia's parents take the next plane from Australia. They can't believe the state your house is in. Then they tell you Julia is coming to live with them. You don't argue. You say you'll visit soon. A few weeks go by. Summer is coming and you see an ad in the paper for a job. I mean, I can't blame her family for wanting to be with her, especially when we're clearly not handling it well. It's probably the best way to handle this, is to just not argue. Whew. You take it. It's very peaceful out here. Nice and quiet. Well, just take a second and look out at the horizon there. I do love the outdoors, especially the remote wilderness. It's not always easy to come across living in a city or suburb or, city adjacent. A lot of people never really get to experience true wilderness. And just the serene calm that comes with it of just sitting outside, no phone, no podcasts, no distractions. Just sitting alone at a high vantage point and being alone with your thoughts. If that's not something you've experienced or get to experience very often, your life's feeling overwhelming, stressful, as oftentimes does, especially the past few years, I'd highly recommend it. Anyway, let's go inside.
Hello, Two Forks Tower.
Oh, nice voice acting. Glad to hear it. I'll answer that in a second. I want to take a look around first.
Tower. Come in. I know you're there. Your lights are on.
Oh. Not much here, just some books, a little cot,
Hello,
tiny oven, and a
pick up your radio.
wood stove. Cozy. Alright, I'll talk to you.
Hello? Whoever this is?
It's Henry, right?
Yeah.
I'm Delilah.
Yeah, that's what the guy said on the phone.
So, what's wrong with you?
Excuse me?
People take this job to get away from something. So, what's wrong?
What's wrong with you?
That's a great idea.
It's a bit insensitive.
Look, I just hiked for 2 days, so I don't really follow whatever it is you're doing right now.
You take a stab at what's wrong with me.
Fine, then can I sleep forever?
Sure, buddy. Okay, now go ahead.
If she only knew.
You're just gonna wait me out on this?
Oh.
Fine.
Time limits, great.
But I'm gonna take a second here and have a guess about you. Let's see. I don't know anything about you. I say you got fired from your job and have finally decided to write your novel. That's the sort of bullshit reason you'll find a man out in the woods.
Good night.
Welcome to the job.
Okay, that's the intro.
Good morning, Henry. Well, I guess good afternoon. You probably slept like a rock. Anyway, there's still a few hours of daylight to get some work in. I can see you at your desk, so call me when you're ready.
Well, everyone, that was a lot more of an emotional intro than I was expecting. Was expecting the heavy stuff to start hitting until maybe a bit later in the game, but that's where we're at. Thanks for watching this part. If you enjoyed the content, and enjoyed might not be the right word there, but if you appreciated it, if you could give me a like or subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitch, whatever. You've heard it a million times by now. You know how this goes. I'd really appreciate it. Until then, I will see you in the next part, and we'll continue playing Firewatch and see what eventually is going to make me cry while playing this game. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.